Hello there. Welcome back to Sustainable Liz. Today we will be visualizing climate change using something that we pretty much all have access to, Google Earth. But of course, we are not just exploring for fun. We are going to look at the undeniable effects that climate change has had on this Earth. That being said, today is a beautiful day in Denver, Colorado, and I'm feeling pretty positive. So we will also look at some of the really positive, great things that people have been doing to mitigate climate change throughout the world using Google Earth as well, because it's not all bad. We're working really hard to fix all of these issues, and I want you to see that too. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we dive into Google Earth, let's remember how beautiful our planet is and why it's worth saving. From majestic mountains to crystal clear oceans, Earth is a treasure trove of beauty. But as we all know, our planet is changing. The effects of climate change are becoming more visible every single day. So let's take a look at some of the changes we can see on Google Earth. So first, I want to take a look at a super famous glacier in Alaska called Colombia Glacier. This right here is one of the most rapidly changing glaciers in the world. It has receded by over 12 miles since the 1980s, and it's lost more than half of its total thickness and volume, and this is all according to NASA. But don't take my word for it, let's take a peek. So right now what you're looking at is the glacier from space, from a satellite, as of 12/2020, as you can see in the top left corner here. So if I move this cursor back, let's go all the way back to 1984, that's where the glacier used to be. Okay, so you can just see it slowly change over time. These are all real images from space of this glacier changing. Obviously, it's receded a ton. This glacier was originally over some pretty thick water. So as the climate has changed, as it's gotten warmer, the glacier has melted, which has caused it to crumble and break down into smaller pieces over time. Now, scientists and researchers are hoping that eventually this glacier does stop retreating as quickly because it is hitting shallower water, meaning it won't break off nearly as much, so it won't be retreating as quickly. Personally, I think this is the best example that we can see of a retreating glacier, the glaciers that are being affected by climate change. Now that we've seen this with our own eyes, we see that the glaciers are actually retreating and melting. Let's move on to another effect. Next, we'll look at the Aerol Sea in Kazakhstan, and I'm not fully sure that I'm saying Aerol Sea correctly. I'm sure there's a better way, but that's how I'm reading it. As you can see, there's not much to see of this sea. Looks more like a salt flat than a sea. We've got a little bit of water over here, but really not much. Let's see what it used to look like. 1985. This was pretty full of water. 1973, this might look like a bit of a wonky image. That's because we did not have as good imaging back then from space, but you can see that it was a full sea. If I say sea one more time. And then compared to now, it's almost entirely dried up. You can also see this in some of the places in California that have dried up all of the water for the people of LA, but we won't get into that. That sea once provided jobs, once provided climate control for the area, not to mention water for nearby cities. And just looking at it today, it is nearly entirely dried up. This causes sandstorms, this causes decreased biodiversity. Think of all the fish, the native fish that used to live in here. And it hurts local economies because there's not these fishing jobs that were massive in the area back when there was actually a sea there. Now, oddly enough, part of the reason for this is fast fashion. You see, this area of the world is huge in cotton production, the raw material used in a lot of our clothing. Water flows into seas like this to maintain the water inside of it, and that water was diverted for irrigating farms for cotton. This is why we need to thrift more. This is why we need to sew more. This is why we need to focus on better practices for our clothing, because when we have to mass produce cotton to constantly keep up with fast fashion, seas like this fall, they dry up, they become salt flats, and nearby cities are affected heavily by that. It sucks. Those are real people with real lives who are truly affected by this. I swear this will get less depressing in a little bit. I promise. Just stick with me. Let's move to our next example, our final sad example before we get to the happy. Let's look at Goleta Beach near Santa Barbara. Look at that. We even got a 2023 photo here. Goleta Beach, super popular spot for a lot of people in the area to go have their beach time, hang out. Now, what's really interesting is there used to be more beach than this. There used to be a lot more. So let's go back a little bit. We'll go back. Let's see if we can go back all the way. Nope, we do not have 1985 images reliable. Here we go, 1994. This is what the beach used to look like. We've got a flat coastline all the way through. In fact, I'm going to specifically put this towards the bottom of the camera so you can see where the beach is. Now let's move to now. Do you see that receding shoreline? Now, the interesting thing about this is that, of course, sea levels are rising, right? We know that because massive glaciers, especially the ones on Greenland and Iceland and those types of areas, are melting. And that's causing the sea levels to get higher because more water is suddenly in them. This is all doubled with erosion and, again, irrigation for agriculture, which was not a theme that I meant to have in this video, but it's something that is kind of coming through again. You see, there's a lot of rivers that flow into this area, and they usually are here replacing sediment, replacing the sand. But because we've been irrigating all of these rivers for agriculture, less sediment is coming through, less water is flowing through, and that's slowing down the replacing of the sand. So not only are sea levels rising, not only is erosion happening, which is a natural process, but the erosion is not being filled with the flowing sediment that's coming from these rivers because of agriculture. Now, doubly interesting, you'll notice that a lot of places like Miami and Cancun are a little bit less affected by this. Waikiki is another example. They're borrowing sand from the sea floor to bring to these beaches so we don't see the erosion that's happening. We don't see the sea level rise as much in some of these places because they're paying for it to not happen. There are walls that they're building as well to stop the sea water from coming inland, but a lot of it is that they're purchasing sand, either bringing it in from the seafloor, which causes more erosion, so that didn't work for Miami, did it? Or they're bringing it from nearby banks that are kind of little offshore islands that they can take the sand from. Or at this point, because a lot of them have used those options up, they are purchasing sand from overseas to fill in these beaches. They are making it seem as if it's not nearly as bad as it is. And I can assure you, the world is going to run out of sand at some point. And I know that sounds silly, but it's a weird fun fact. Go down that rabbit hole if you'd like to. But this specific example is really interesting to me because it's just crazy to see that change. That change, especially right around this area, you can just see the beach get skinnier. You can see this whole area just gone. And it's impacting nearby beaches too, because nearby beaches are also losing their sediment and they're also being eroded and they're not being filled. So at this point, we can see the overwhelming effects of climate change and also just human impacts on the environment. We've got melting glaciers, we have shrinking ice caps, we have receding shorelines, we have lakes that are really important to communities drying up. We can even see deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. Here, 1984, look at all that green. 2020, we've lost a fair amount of that. It's pretty obvious that we see these effects on the world that humans are putting there. I don't know why that's contention for some people in my comments on my TikToks and Reels. And I haven't even touched on industrialization of various cities, which you can go onto Google Earth and see. I mean, look at Las Vegas. We've got this massive town in a desert where people should not be living. Okay, I'm sorry. I know everyone there is tired of hearing it. Look at how giant this is. Look at how many people live in Las Vegas. You can see the edge of the city. 1984. Half that size. And they're stealing all our water from Colorado, so I can't tell you I'm that happy about it. Sorry, people of Vegas. I love you, but I hate that your city exists. All right, we've gone over all of the problems. All right, we get it. Climate is changing. People are impacting the environment in a bad way. What are you gonna do about it? Here's the thing. People have been waking up to these issues for many a year. We're taking action, and let me show you some of the things that you can see from Google Earth that show that the Earth, the world, the humans actually care about this issue. First, we'll look at a couple of solar parks. This one is the Tengger Desert Solar Park. This is in the country of China. And as you can see, this right here, those are all single solar panels, creating this beautiful backdrop of an insane amount of solar power and obviously a very sunny area that is honestly powering a fair amount of this city right here, of all of these little districts and cities. But that's not all. We also have Ben Solar Park in Egypt. Another very sunny place, another place that might need a fair amount of power. And look at all of those solar panels. Let's go in, okay. That right there, one solar panel, single solar panel. Let's zoom out. Look at all of those solar panels and look at that beautiful nearby city that is absolutely utilizing that power. I've just got one more little thing, okay? We've got this amazing wind farm called the Gansu Wind Farm. Do you see that right there? Okay, that is a wind turbine that is being used to create power. Now let's zoom out and take a look at all of these little specks that are all wind turbines. And those are creating power for the nearby cities. Because we don't want to use oil. We don't want to use coal. We don't want to use these horrible non-renewable resources to power our houses and our cities if we don't have to. There are plenty of solar farms and wind farms like this throughout the world. Feel free to take a Google if you want to feel a little bit better about your life. Not only is renewable energy booming, we also have restoration projects for the rainforests and the forests in general that are being deforested throughout the world. There are efforts to clean up our oceans that are actually making a huge difference. And the coolest part is that you can be part of this change too. Here are a few practical steps that you can take right now to help in the efforts to stop the climate from changing. First off, and I know this is obvious, we've been told this since we were a kid, say it with me, reduce, reuse, and recycle. It's still one of the most effective ways to combat climate change. If we're not using nearly as many raw resources to create all of the things that we use in our day-to-day lives, and we're reusing and we're reducing the things that we're purchasing, like plastic waste, and we're recycling and keeping a circular economy that maintains all of the things inside that one area, then we are going to make a massive impact on climate change. Another obvious thing, support renewable energy. If you have the ability to install solar panels, you're probably rich at this point, but if you can do it, absolutely try. But just supporting renewable energy in general is really helpful, like voting in favor of things that support renewable energy use, using your voice to let people know that that's what you care about in this world. Those are the things that will push renewable energy to hopefully be cheaper and widely available. This next one might make some of you mad, but eating plant-based really does help. Eating plant-based, eating organic, eating local specifically, I think is the most important thing. Feel free to eat your beef. If that beef came from right down the street and you bought it directly from your farmer, good on you. You just did an amazing thing for the environment and your local economy. Really, the main reason that eating plant-based is so good for the environment is just because it takes so much resources to grow the beef that you're buying for cheap at the grocery store, and the chicken, and all of the other meats that you're purchasing. The sheer amount of landscape that just goes to growing soy and corn for feeding the animals is insane. We could use that space to be growing things that we would actually be eating, and that's why we need to eat more plant-based, so we stop supporting these massive feedlots that are already unethical and also horrible for the environment. Just buy from your local farmer if you're gonna eat beef, please, or any other meat. Also reduce water waste, especially if you live somewhere like Denver, Colorado, where it's a desert. Fix your leaks. Use water-saving appliances. Don't take such long showers. We really are in somewhat of a water crisis, and we really do need to start conserving, especially if you live in Western US. And lastly, support sustainable brands. I think wherever you're putting your money, try to make it a sustainable thing that you're putting towards. I think that is key in really making a difference, is using your pocket, your money, your debit card to change the world. If you prioritize sustainability, if everybody starts prioritizing sustainability, I can assure you the big companies that aren't doing it will start doing it too. So yes, climate change is real and it's impacting our planet. But the good news is we all legitimately have the power to make changes for the better. And as you can see, Google Earth is not simply a tool for exploration. It's a way to see how the world is changing around us every single day, and has been for years. It shows us the beauty of the world, and it shows us the potential for positive change. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. Remember, every small action counts, and together we truly can create a brighter, greener future for this planet. Please share this video with your friends to inspire more people to take action, and especially share it with those family members that you see at Thanksgiving that might not believe in climate change, because I think it'd be really funny. Also, if you made it to this point in the video, you are legally obligated to like and subscribe to this channel.